Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Procrastinator's Pit Stop. We have another amazing guest for you today. I am here with Dean Martin. Dean actually travels the globe, writing code, exchanging cultures, and exploring how to thrive comfortably as a neurodivergent individual through mindful habits like supplements, sunshine, and walk. He brings humor and insight to life's deeper questions, sharing personal reflections on what's been missed, learned, and where everyone is headed next. Dean, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris, for having me. Excited to be here.
And we're excited to have you here as well, and we're going to dig into it in just a moment. But as is customary on the show, we do like to have a little bit of an icebreaker. And the question for you today is, which animated character do you resonate with the most, and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's so many good ones, so many bad ones, so many controversial ones. Yeah, I mean, you got Goku, you got Vegeta, you got Gohan. In Mexico, apparently Dragon Ball Z is super popular. They have I had no idea. I was like, why are there so many Dragon Ball Z stalls everywhere? But they have that. But to answer your question, I would say, and this is based on the live action because I haven't seen the anime itself, but One Piece, Monkey D. Luffy, which is a great show. Like, it's one of those shows where I'm like, I don't want to watch that. But then you see the reviews and they're like so good. You're like, okay, I have to watch this. But yeah, it's a great show. He's a great character. What I really like about him is he's just eternally optimistic. You know, he stands up and he fights for what he wants. And then he just accepts his crew and his people, and he brings them along for the ride. And you know, he fights for them tooth and nail, even against themselves sometimes. Like, you know, because they've all had pretty tragic backgrounds if you've seen it, and they'll often identify with that a little too much, and they put themselves down. And he's just there to bring them up or to remind them of the cause and to just keep going, and we're all in this together, and let's have an adventure. So I would say the most recent one, and that's been out for a while. I haven't seen that in a while, but yeah, it's a good show. It's a good show.
Actually, I like that one. And, sometimes I think that, we could use a little more optimism in the world sometimes. We don't always get it all the time.
Yeah, and if you can't get it, make it yourself. That's what I say.
Oh, that is very true. So, Dean, tell me, what is procrastination to you? How do you define it? What does it mean to you personally?
That is a great question. There's a lot of layers to that. I think as you kind of go through the journey of like dealing with anxiety, dealing with all these thoughts in your head and just trying to survive, sometimes you're the question you keep asking, like, what's important? What are priorities? Bills are important. Suing your landlord is important. I just recently did that. I won and then she appealed. But there's like a process you have to go through to get this stuff done, and there's timelines and their deadlines. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to deal with it. Like, I want to do other things that are more important to me. But then you have to ask yourself, like, it's not about the money, but it's about standing up for yourself and pushing through and going through the process, even if it's annoying, even if it's this, that, or the other. So, and I thought about this. It's a combination of a couple of things. I would say priorities of what your values are and what's important to you. The second thing is understanding yourself well enough, how you deal with certain situations, what causes anxiety in you, what causes bad memories in you, what triggers, and how do you deal with that and how do you work through that? And that sometimes takes a lot of time, really the feelings that are bubbling up when you have to do a task and how to manage all of that. And then the third thing, if I have one, because I might have forgot, I would say the physical part of it, and just your health, really, like taking care of yourself enough to be able to do those things. If you don't sleep well enough, you can't do anything. If you don't eat well enough, you're going to feel like crap all the time. If you don't, clean your place every now and then, you're not going to be able to find a spot to sit down and do your stuff. And then with that health, taking care of yourself aspect, it's also about, asking yourself what is a bit tied in with the values things, but like what's important to you and how do you plan those things? And then also, how do you support yourself? If you need certain things, like if you need a quiet place to do work, if you need filtered air, if you need filtered water, how do you give yourself those things? Because a lot of people just, they bulldoze and they ignore how certain things make them feel. Like if your shirt is too itchy or whatever, some people will kind of use they'll call it tough love, or they'll call it, toxicity, and they'll be like, oh, you're just making excuses. That could, a lot of people do that. Oh, just shut up and just barrel through it, which is one way to do it. But that causes issues versus, okay, what do I need right now? And sometimes, it is annoying. I'm like, okay, I got to do this thing, but like, it would help me if I clean my room. It would help me if I got some clean underwear, but do that, get yourself into that position. Cause at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. Like if I sue my landlord, if I fill out the paperwork or not, it would be nice, but if I don't, then I lose a couple of bucks. That's really what it is. Like you beat yourself up over a couple of dollars. That's really what it comes down to. If I don't return this thing to Amazon, I lose like $5. If I don't go to the bank and get this thing, I lose like $10. If you really, is it worth it to really get that extra $10? Maybe. Or is it worth it just to forget about it and walk away? Sometimes you're like, it really just comes down to like, I lose $5. Perfect. Take the $5. Let me get out of here. But then you have like a little bit of an ego thing about that. But then also some people are just not in a good position, and every little thing is another dollar that they have to fight for a little bit. It kind of goes back to that one movie that I can't remember. But it was like a big Ponzi scheme thing, and I think the director is married to Madonna, and she was going through like a cabal phase, and he's like, there's nothing that hurts more than to your ego when you lose a little bit of money. And that's really, really true. And so again, that goes back to prioritizing too. If you keep losing $5 for a little thing, yeah, that does add up. But if you can just say, all right, cool, just take the late fee. I'd rather just not think about it anymore. You got to make those decisions too. So again, that goes back to keeping your system in check and not overloading it with just everything that just doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So it's like the 80-20 principle, I guess, is part of that of like, okay, I'll take care of the thing that's going to cost me $100. The thing that's going to cost you $5, I'm just not even going to worry about that unless I get all the big ticket items out of the way first. So yeah, I feel like that's rolled up into there too.
Okay. And we all know that there's no silver bullet. You mentioned that, it really depends on the person, priorities, and how they feel about it and all that. What's your sort of secret sauce for overcoming procrastination when you know that something is probably in your best interest, but you're not?
That's a great question. Having a process, I think, is really important. Having good tools is really important. And those things are different for everybody. Like, even the way I use Google Calendar versus how someone else is using Google Calendar is completely different. And you have to really find what works. I have a process that I use almost every day that also allows for like, if I, pass out for like 3, so that it doesn't matter as much. Using tools like autopay is a great tool. But then some people are like, oh no, I want to sit there and do all that. Like, that's up to you. If that works for you, that's cool. I can't do that. If I don't put on autopay, I get in trouble. But if you put on autopay, you got to make sure the money's in there. So using your tools is important, knowing what those tools are. But again, it's not just AI. AI is great, but there's a large learning curve, and it's kind of an amorphous thing because I've been trying to use it. But, trying different tools. Like one of the tools is like that old school book, Getting Things Done. One of my friends he just got into it. He's like, oh yeah, I got this great book, Getting Things Done. It's going to be, I'm like, I don't know, man. I've tried that. It's a lot. Like, because he wants you to dump everything all at once. And he had this incredible, but what's important to you in that moment does not necessarily mean you should be doing it. There's a priority type of thing. So, my process now is like, I don't have a list of things that go, forward. Plus he also has like a tickler thing. It's a little bit of an old school these tools are technology. So it's a bit of an old school technology, but I've adapted some of what he does for how I need to do it. And that took a while. Like, I tried it out and like, I hate this because it's just so much pressure to get all these things done. But some of them are kind of weird stuff that I made up. So it really didn't make any sense anyway. So tools are important. Understanding yourself is important. Like I said, having automatic defaults that will take care of it for you if you're not capable of doing it. And then making sure those things have what it needs to, like I said, if you're going to put on it, make sure your bank account has the money. And if you can't do that, that's like a different question to figure out how can I use this better? Like if you're, whatever, if you have expenses and you have to kind of juggle stuff around, that's a little complicated. So that's, again, on an individual basis. But yeah, tools are important. Getting help is also important too. Understanding, there's this thing called body doubling. If you have trouble kind of sitting down and focusing, you can actually get aligned with somebody else and you have a 2-second conversation, they're just there. And knowing that helps you do certain things. You have to figure that out. You have to say, okay, like, here's this thing I'm procrastinating on. Why is it doing that? And what can I do to alleviate it versus just trying to barrel through it and punch yourself in the face, drink a whole thing of coffee and just lock yourself in a closet. Not that I've done that. Although maybe I have done that. I don't know. You got to see up and you're like, okay, this is not good. This is not a cool way to do things. And you find other things that will help you do things better. Sometimes if it's just having a friend text you, hey, I really got to get this done. Would you be cool? Text me, whatever. Some of it's accountability. I don't like that word anymore because it creates like this unnecessary pressure because the other person thinks they're helping, but they don't necessarily know how to do it like in the way that you need to do it. So it kind of becomes like this yelling match because they think that's their vision of what an accountability coach is, just yelling at you and berating you until you get it done. I hate that. I fight back. Like I'll literally just throw my computer against the wall if somebody does that to me. And I'll tell them that too. Like, if you keep pushing me, it will freak out. So you better stop now. So, you got to know yourself a little bit well. So, yeah, like I said, so getting your tools into place, knowing what you need, developing that over time, using the tools that remove you from the whole situation. So you don't have to deal with it. And then consistently looking at it and then getting feedback. And is this tool working? What do I need to tweak a little bit? And then you get to efficiency. And then, okay, is there a tool that can do it better that will actually save me some time, money, etc.? So yeah, tools are important. Help is important. Understanding, removing yourself as the block is important. If you can do that, it really depends on what the task is. And then you letting yourself do the things that are more important that you don't have to fight yourself to do. Researching TikTok or doing like the really important creative stuff that is meaningful to you, because that's the stuff that you don't have to, that you're not procrastinating on. Even sometimes. So that's like another, sometimes you are procrastinating for other reasons. Like you're too scared of what's going to happen. You don't have the information of what it means to put stuff together. Like if you're posting videos, like I had trouble posting videos because I'm like, oh, it's got to be too perfect. Sometimes you got to do it. So that's a different type of creative procrastination, I would say, versus like, I don't want to do procrastination because I don't think it's important, but it is, versus like I would say a big picture. This is way too much information procrastination. So I'll kind of break it down in like those three things where one's just like everyday stuff that I think is stupid, but I don't want to do it. But if I don't, it's going to be a mess. A creative procrastination where you're dealing with internal struggles and insecurities, all that kind of stuff. And then like the big picture procrastination where there's just really no answers to it. And it's like a longer term thing that develops over time. I don't know if I just made all it up, but that sounds good to me.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And, having systems and tools in place. I'm just curious, have you ever, just going back to the body doubling, have you ever heard of or used FocusMate?
Yeah. Yeah, you mean body doubling?
Yeah, body doubling. Yeah.
Okay, bodybuilding. That would be working out because I do have a personal trainer now. But
yeah, so
yeah, I've used FocusMate. There's a couple other one. Yeah, I've tried all of them. I've even hired virtual assistants to just be there as my body double too. Because with those, they're a little bit more silent. But with the virtual assistant, I can actually just kind of talk to them a little bit more about random stuff. Again, it's like, what do I need? Because sometimes some people, even on the FocusMate stuff, they won't physically talk to you. They'll just text you. And I'm just like, I kind of, this is annoying. I'd like to hear about what you're doing a little bit. But, some people don't want to do that. So, yeah, that's how that is. So yeah, I've tried that. And then sometimes my friend just calls me and then it's just doing stuff. I'm just doing stuff too. So yeah, many different ways to do the same thing with different tools and finding out which one works for you.
And here's a big one. It's a big one for everybody, actually. Sometimes a big one for me too. I admit it. How do you deal with distractions? Because you get hit by 1,000 different things every day. We get notifications, we get dings, we get knocked on doors, we get dogs barking, we get people saying you didn't do your laundry. We get all these things. How do you deal with distractions?
That's a great question. My biggest thing is environment. So I have a co-working space, and I did that in Poland too. sometimes just getting out of your house with the distractions are and getting into a place where people focus and work and stuff is a big help. I mean, it's a couple bucks. They have free coffee usually. And, and you can talk to people. I kind of just want to do my thing and get out and do other things. This one actually has community activities too, but I just don't have time for that stuff. So environment, I think, is a huge thing. Not just, like the room you're in, but then also I wear AirPods, and then I also wear sunglasses indoors because I want people to know I'm cool. And I put on sunglasses, and whatever they're thinking, they know I'm plugged in. So I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. And now I have to get something done. So that's environment too, where it's not just uh the physical location, but like your mental. I don't know if it's a mental thing, but like once I put the headphones on, I put the glasses on, I'm doing my thing. And sometimes that takes a little bit of time to develop. If I'm going to a cafe, and sometimes I get to find like a quieter cafe, you have to like go through 6 different cafes to find out the one you want. And when I was in Hawaii, there was one really nice cafe, but they didn't have Wi-Fi. So I was like, all right, I like it enough that I'll just use my data on my phone. So sometimes you have to do that too. You have to like kind of adapt a little bit. And sometimes that helps. Just go on purpose, go to a cafe that doesn't have Wi-Fi. And you have to kind of just use your phone to do a little bit, but that depends on the work you're doing. So that kind of depends on that too. But environment, I think, is a big thing. But that's also making sure you have like monitors, like the co-working space I have right now. It comes with monitors, which I think is amazing. Like I have to pay extra for it. But I also have my own personal traveling monitor. Having that screen real estate, one monitor is a little hard. Setting that up for you where you can do the work, but sometimes it is just a physical thing. Because it's just uncomfortable. And it's like, okay, if I'm uncomfortable, that's like another thing I have to filter out just to get the work done. So that works for me. With that is like, sometimes fasting works, sometimes coffee works, sometimes not drinking coffee works, or caffeine. So you have to find that out. For me, sometimes it depends on the type of coffee, and it depends on how I'm drinking, and then it depends on the day. So I like to say, for a lot of neurodivergent, it's like we're quantum beings where there's a probability that something is going to help, but it really depends on the day, and it's never consistent. Like if you do it this one day, you're amazing, and the next day, it doesn't work at all. What's the probability? You have to like figure something else out. Environment, and just what gets you into that groove, and you have to kind of like play around with that for a little bit. So environments, tools, and then your process of getting yourself situated. So like I said, I have a process where I sit down, I brain dump everything that I need to do. And then sometimes I have a couple of habits. Sometimes I'll do 10 minutes of typing, just like typing exercises to get myself into that. Okay, here's what we're doing. Or sometimes like 10 minutes of like reading to prime my brain to be like, okay, we're getting ready to do some work and get rid of all those distractions. So yeah, so environments, music, stuff like that.
You mentioned something interesting, and this is always something I like asking people too. I call it the carrot and stick methodology, right? So sometimes you mentioned that you might have that cup of coffee you really like, or maybe put on some music you really like, and that gets you in the zone, or maybe like a little reward, like your favorite meal or whatever when you're done.
Mhm.
Or you go the other way, so you say, oh well, we're fasting, so we're making ourselves hungry, so we don't get food until we finish this. Or some people I've heard actually drink like 3 liters of water, and then they're like, I'm not getting up to go do my thing until I'm done this paper. In your experience and in your opinion, which do you think would work better, the carrot or the stick?
No, it's not a great question. I don't like the stick because I don't like hard for anything, because like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If I need a big enough stick to feel pain to do something, I shouldn't be doing it really. And then that's a different question of because I'm always really extra compassionate to myself, because I know it's hard to do any of this stuff, like just to sit down with your thoughts and get something done. So I don't believe in really beating yourself up. Maybe in the beginning, maybe a little bit. I do believe in challenging yourself to be like, okay, but I'm always ready to pull the escape hatch. I'm always ready to hit that red button. Like, okay, we're done. We're done. We've pushed it enough. I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore, because it's more important to take care of yourself than it is to get any one thing done, really, at the end of the day. That's just my personal opinion. I know some people don't believe in that. They'd rather just stick a fork in their eye until they're done. Like, I mean, you could do that. That's up to you. I've just found that a lot of things just don't matter. I mean, the things that I want to do, like I want to do those things and it matters to a certain degree, but it's not worth my sanity. It's not worth my health. I mean, there's very few things that are, I would argue that. So it's really working with yourself to put yourself in that position. So, but that's also great because there's kind of this movement where there's like the somatic therapy, which I really do believe in. They take the stance of they call it like rest and digest. It's parasympathetic nervous system regulation, and they want you to take care of yourself, eat. They want you to rest, and I agree with that. Like you should do that, but at a certain point, you got to flip the script and you have to challenge yourself because you get bored, especially with somebody who is ADHD. They'll get bored. So you have to flip it and you have to like, okay, what's the challenge today? Because I want that dopamine, right? I want to do that challenging thing. So you push yourself a little bit. But then, with ADHD, they'll push a little too hard. And then I believe you got to flip it back. So it's this flipping of compassion for yourself, of pushing yourself enough, and then pulling yourself back. And that's the challenge of like pushing yourself enough and then pulling it back, push yourself and then pulling it back. And then I would say, every now and then you do like a really large sprint where you're just pushing yourself, and then for like a week or something, and then pulling that back. Like with this court paperwork stuff, I had to push myself like for 2 days. I really hated doing it. I'm like, look, after these 2 days, we're going to chill out. And then you have to worry about it again. So I think that balance is really important. I always err on the side of giving myself more compassion until I'm ready to take on those bigger challenges. And if I'm not, then again, it's up to you to choose, is your health really worth whatever that thing is? And that really depends on where you are in your life and what you have to do. Like way back when I did a coding boot camp, and it was just like 2 months of just nonstop adrenaline, no sleep. So, cause I had to get it done. There was no other option. So in those situations, again, for short periods of time, you have to understand that. Unless you don't care, unless you just want to go balls to the wall and like burn yourself out and cry in the middle of the street. That's up to you. That's a choice. You can choose that. Some people don't even choose that. Some people, they don't realize they have any other choice. They like, I have to do this. And they physically damage themselves. They physically, mentally damage themselves for a very long time. And people do that. I'm not going to judge. It's just, what if you didn't do that? Go ahead. Drink tons of coffee. Go ahead. Take all the drugs. Go ahead. Fight for what you think is right. Go ahead. Destroy your health. What if you didn't? What if you didn't do that? I don't know. What does that look like? But that's kind of the issue, like where your mindset is. I would say that balance, I don't even call it balance. The understanding that there are consequences to those things, but then also knowing that there are other options. That's the problem. People don't know that there are other options. They don't know what else they could be doing. They don't know how to treat themselves, but those things do take time. Those things take understanding, time. I like to say self-help is free. You can read a book. Self-care and self-activation are expensive. Like self-care is very expensive because it takes time. It takes money a lot of times, things like therapy, supplements, body work. Those are unfortunately expensive. I didn't create the system. That's just what I understand of how that is. But in the beginning, self-help is free. You can read a book. You can ignore a lot of things and I'm just going to do this one thing until I get to that level. And then it's really kind of messed up. At the same time, what else are you going to do? So I err on the side of, now I do, like I said, before I was there. I was just pounding cups of coffee, just completely dysregulated, completely full of adrenaline just to get that one thing done. So if you're in that situation, if that's where, then do it. Just focus on that one thing that gets you there, but make sure that that's not a long-term thing, make sure, but then sometimes you just fall into that. If you push it hard enough and you take enough risk and you get to that next level where you have those resources now, then it just kind of automatically happens where you're like, oh, I can get some breathing room and then I can work on these other things and not be in that situation again where I'm just scrambling. But sometimes you got to do that. I'd rather you take that risk on yourself and fight for something. And, I hate to say it, like teeter on the brink of extinction to make it. And then you can kind of fall back. Cause I don't know what the other options are. Like, unless you get really lucky, somebody gives you an opportunity. And that happens. Look for those opportunities, but those don't always come around. So in the long scheme of things, understand that you have these spurts of like intensity, borderline unhealthy things, and then flip the script and make it so you can have a better, longer term plan for not putting yourself in that position, is what I would say.
No, that makes a lot of sense for sure. I wanted to go back to something that you said there, which is really profound in that we need to challenge ourselves, but at the same time we don't tend to do that when we're comfortable. So why do you think that when we're comfortable we just don't feel like challenging ourselves, and why we don't strive for more when we're comfortable? It's only when we're uncomfortable that we're like, oh, we got to change it.
Well, classic hedonic treadmill is one thing. We just get comfortable. But the other thing is so back to what I was saying, you put yourself through so much stuff to stress, and you're like, I don't want to have to do that again. But what you don't realize is like, you're different now. You don't have to do it that unhealthy way again. There's other tools that you can do it differently now. So it's just, lack of information, lack of technology of understanding, okay, how do I do this? And that's why I think TikTok is so great, because like people show you how they do things. And the other thing is, people just settle. That's cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a comfortable life, to be happy all the time. I don't know if that sounds crazy to me, to be happy all the time. Like, sounds great. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm a little jealous. Like, I wish I could just be like that sometime. But, if people are happy just being where they are, I mean, that's a great thing. I think that's totally fine. That doesn't mean everybody should be doing that. If we had everybody doing that, that wouldn't be great. Even if you travel to different countries, they have different mentalities of work and socializing and what's really important. Because like, if you go to like Belgium, like they have like 40% tax rates, but they care about social welfare more than they do about things. And so people care about spending time with other people. They care about having meals together. They don't care about material things. They don't care about how much furniture they have. They don't care about the cars that they have. So their focus is different. And so a lot of their energy is tied into people. And it's kind of wild to see that they can even do that. But that's what they've decided as a country, as a society, that's what's important to them. And they have a lot of programs that are facilitated towards that. But again, they're all different. So, find out which people aren't exposed to those different realities. So they're kind of just stuck with what they know. And I'll tell you, it's like being on Instagram. You're just getting crap from the people you already know. You're not really being exposed to different people, different opinions. This is me crapping on Instagram for a little bit, and you don't know what's going on right now. You don't know how they live their lives, how exciting new and different foods are, how exciting new and different, attractions are. That's why traveling is so important, to like see people, how they're living. And it's like, like they're doing it. They're happy. They don't have to be like a crazy American just running around all the time. They can just chill out, which is a wild concept for me. So yeah, I mean, I think they just kind of aren't exposed to new things as much. But they can just be stressed out of their minds. I think that's the other problem too, is that the society they live in just doesn't give them that space to even exist. They're fighting for their survival. I have to pay bills. I have to pay this ridiculous car that I use 2 hours a day. But if I don't have it, I'm literally cut off from everything. So a lot of it's societal too. Like they're not given that space to explore what they want to do, to explore what else is out there. They're just surviving. They're barely surviving. And that's a tough situation. How can I think about doing anything when I'm worried about inflation and cost of groceries and the cost of, so that's it too. Like they're just, if they're just in a bad situation and they don't have the mental, physical, emotional, financial resources to even begin to think about challenges. Existing is a challenge. That's the problem. Existing is a challenge. That's for sure. I've been there, and I'm incredibly grateful for the things that I've done, but I've also taken a lot of risks. That's the other thing. It's just taking, like, the idea of a risk is kind of crazy. Like people think like moving to a new city is a huge risk. And like, I've done that so many times. Like they've just been in that same place forever. Like you can't even move somewhere for a month or two. I can't leave everything. But like, what's going to happen if you do? And people never find out. They never do it. Well, I mean, part of it is they think that, doing something like that is a huge commitment. Oh my God, if I move to a city that's like forever, it doesn't have to be. You go for a month. You go for a week, you go for a year. That's a great way. Like they never zoom in, they never zoom out. They think whatever that thing is like a permanent thing. Doesn't have to be. You could go for a week, go see what it's like. Even when, people are talking about going to a different city, like, oh my God, I gotta pack up all my stuff. I'm like, you don't even know what it's like. Why would you go there for an entire year? Why would you sign a lease if you've never even been there? Why don't you go for a weekend to see how it's like? Why? And I usually think it's more expensive. Really, that's what it is to go for one weekend. If you do the math, it's like buying in bulk. It's like going to Costco. Like if I buy this, 100 things of toilet paper, it's less expensive than I just buy one piece of toilet paper. But I don't know if I like it or not. Like, why wouldn't you buy one? Because you can't. Maybe you should just steal one. I don't know. But you don't know what it's going to be like until you try it out. And so there's that cost benefit. Because I do that too. I'm like, dude, I call it small scale testing now. Like if you do a small scale test, you limit your risk. You see if you like it. Like learning how to scuba dive. Like, that's a huge commitment. Like I'm not going to sign up to learn how to scuba dive. I know what it takes. But I was talking to somebody, oh, you can do like a free discovery dive. Oh, I didn't know they had that. So like that gives you a taste of it before you make a huge commitment, which I think is a different topic too. Like these huge commitments that we've been forced to do forever, like leases or like marriage. I don't know. It's like people jump into like these huge commitments. I think that's also old school technology where back then you didn't have as much variety of things, as much technology wasn't moving as fast. So you can try so many things before you make a huge commitment that you can't back out of. Even like home ownership, like have you tried like taking care of somebody's house for a month and seeing what they have to do? Or even like choosing a college degree. Like, have you asked to shadow a doctor before you commit the next 10 years of your 18 years of your life and $500,000 to become a doctor without even knowing what it's like? And like, where do you even get that idea? I think it's, people do that. So yeah, it's so many different things. But if I had to look at the whole world, I would just say people are just surviving and they're not taking enough risks because, even in a survival situation, you have to take bigger risks just to hedge your bets. That's really what it is.
I like that. Hedge your bets, take those risks because, the risk of regret is much bigger than the risk of, just not doing it at all.
Yeah.
It's been a really great conversation, Dean. I've had a lot of really great, insights. We are coming up pretty close to the time. Is there anything that you feel I should have asked but didn't ask, or anything that we should have covered that we didn't cover?
I guess, like, what's the meaning of life? Like, what's the point of doing anything?
42.
Pretty big.
42.
Yeah, I would say, for that, I'll go back to a famous comedian. I think he's like, it's not exactly what he said. He's like, even a bad life is still pretty good. Yeah, you get to experience things. You're going to be struggling, but every day you wake up with a new day, and there are opportunities out there. It's hard to see. It's hard to imagine, depending on, how bad your situation is. I'm eternally optimistic, even though I've been beaten down plenty of times. But if you keep looking for those opportunities, if you keep pushing for what you want and you keep asking this question, you keep curious, I think eventually that'll happen. Again, like I said, the problem is people are being bound by the system and other people and authority figures, and they're like, oh, I can't ask questions anymore. And then they lose that spark. And that's when they really start to settle. A learned helplessness is really what it's called. But you can undo that. You can move past that. But it's not easy. A lot of those bad influences we're all born with, family, teachers. And I think to tie that all up, a big part of that is just your environment. Sometimes you have to just, they call it burning the bridges, moving out of your state, isolating yourself for a little bit just to be with yourself, not with all these things and all these people influencing you, telling you who you are and what you want. But that's not easy either. That's scary a lot of times. But it's your life. What do you want to do with it? Yeah. You get to decide that purpose. If you're brave enough to ask the questions, is really what it is.
I like that. I mean, what a powerful note to end on. It is your life. You make of it what you will. Think about unconditional happiness. And, the reason that we're not happy is because we put conditions on things. So maybe have less conditions.
Yeah. Or it's, I would say it's perspective on the conditions. It's the condition is kind of like a tool. A lot of things are tools, but then we put a particular emotion to it, and that ruins a lot of things. That's kind of how I see it. Like it's just, they're tools. And it's working through those emotions about the tools or the conditions or the judgments or the people, or that's the tough stuff, because it's hard to see. It's hard to see how, my previous experiences and how I felt and how other people made me feel about whatever it is, my body, my decisions that I made in the past, my behavior in the past. It's hard to process those things and let them go. It's hard to process those things and understand that you don't have to be dictated by that. It's hard to process those things and understand that that happens, but it's okay. And it doesn't have to define the rest of your life. But again, that's the self-care part, because it's hard to see all that stuff. It's really hard to even understand that stuff. And when you do, there's a freedom that comes with it, because you're like, oh, this is great. I get to process all this stuff and I get to decide what it is. But until you see that, until you're really ready for it, you don't really have a choice. It's all unconscious. It's all just survival. It's really what it is.
Well, again, some more great insights there. Well, we are up at the time here, Dean. Thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate you. Before we go, though, what is the best way for our listeners to, reach out, have a conversation, learn more about you?
Well, for right now, Instagram, Dean Hinx, and I will vehemently find a way to get rid of that. But for now, Instagram is the place.
Okay. And, to all listeners, don't worry about grabbing a pen and paper. We will put that in the show notes, so it'll be easy for you to find, and, reach out and have some questions for them. And once again, thank you for tuning in. And just remember, if you can't find that motivation or inspiration for yourself today, maybe just go out and try and be that motivation or inspiration for someone else. And we'll see you again next time.